Our next speaker, our last speaker for the afternoon before the tea break, is Tony Brown. And Tony is a policy advisor to the EFD group in the European Parliament. And so, Tony, over to you.
Thank you. They gave me a title which was The View from Brussels. And I thought about it, and I thought, yes, I work in Brussels and I live in Brussels, but actually, I'm British. I'm also a kipper. So I'm not going to give you a view from Brussels. I'm going to give you a UKIP view of Brussels. Now, it's an interesting city. The Grand Place is very pretty in the sunshine, and that's what the tourists see. And they keep the area around the institutions very clean. But actually, I've walked the back streets of Brussels, the real Brussels. If you come in the Gare du Midi, the first thing you need to know is that you're likely to get your handbag stolen or your laptop stolen. And as if to prove the accuracy of what I'm saying, we had a visit of half of the new UKIP councillors, and one of them had his laptop and bag stolen. I wasn't surprised. The banlieues of Paris, which you have seen in flames, well, they have those in Brussels too. My wife comes out to see me in Brussels, and there are large parts of the city that she will not walk through. There are even parts of the city, one in particular, and I'm not making this up, it is called on the metro stop Matonge. She doesn't like walking through that with me. I used to send Gawain Towler all the emails I got about strikes. I stopped. I didn't want to flood his inbox. They don't mess about, the Belgian police. They use razor wire defences which wouldn't have disgraced a First World War trench, and they're permanently left out around the key European institutions because they're needed so often. Now, why is this happening? Why is Brussels like this? I don't know whether you know it, but the eurozone has been in recession for 6 successive quarters. The eurozone economies have shrunk 6 quarters in a row. It's almost unbelievable. Even our own government doesn't match a record like that. Now, the reasons for it is that the euro is built on lies. They cooked the books to introduce it. They said that lending to Germany and lending to Greece carried equal risk. Goodness, they call us the clowns. They said that productivity would converge. It hasn't. It has diverged. Now, I actually work in the Parliament, and it's Kafkaesque. It's Orwell's Ministry of Truth. They don't actually know the meaning of words. They use this word harmonise, but it actually means the imposition of uniformity, the wiping out of the differences. I get emails through. This is my absolute favourite. I get emails through which inform me that it is a non-paper. So I've had an email, a paper, which has at the top non-paper. So I went to Stuart Agnew, who I work quite closely with, and I said, can we put down a question about this? So we asked the Commission the status of a non-paper. Well, I learned why they call it a non-paper. You see, it's the most cowardly, sick document and approach imaginable. A non-paper is a piece of advice that you cannot quote in court to prove that you were behaving reasonably if the Commission does not like your behaviour. You have the most bizarre conversations. I was sitting in a meeting, and on the text in front of me was and/or. And then somebody said, the Czechs don't have the concept of and/or. And I said, do the Czechs have a word for and? Yes. Do the Czechs have keyboards like we all use with a slash? Yes. Do the Czechs have a word for or? Yes. So why can't we use the Czech word for and the keyboard stroke and the Czech word for or? And perhaps even introduce a new concept into the Czech language? They looked at me as if I was the nutter. Now, in a certain sense, it would be unbearable but for this party's leader. Because you see, working for and with Nigel is like working for a giant amidst pygmies. Incidentally, and just for the record, I do not regard his comments about Van Rompuy, what were they? The charisma of a damp rag and the appearance of a low-grade bankrupt. I do not regard those as insulting. I've met Van Rompuy too, and they're a factual description of what he's actually like. Now, I had the privilege, and it was a privilege, of being approached by Nigel last summer to work with him and help him produce a little booklet. This is it, and I hope some of you had it in the summer, got it, read it. It's called A Referendum Stitch-Up. We regarded it, Nigel regarded it, wanted to produce a first draft of history. A history of the last 50, 60 years of Britain and its relationship with the European Union. And it's a very interesting story. If I were trying to write the commercial for it, I would say it's a tale of duplicity, betrayal, and treachery. Because you see, 60 years ago, under Harold Wilson, the British political class began lying to us. And we all know about lying. One lie leads to another. You have to try to sustain your earlier lies, and lying becomes a habit. Now, you'll say, what is the lie? And the lie, it's incredibly simple and straightforward. They said that we weren't giving up our sovereignty. They said, no, we are pooling our sovereignty. We will be stronger as a result of joining the European Union. Well, Nigel is not merely a great leader, and he is a very great leader, streets ahead of anybody else, I think, certainly in the European Parliament and actually anywhere else in Europe. And so, when he likes the work you've done, he rewards you. And my reward was that he asked me to write the policy booklet for the party about Romanian and Bulgarian immigration. And this is it, and there are some copies outside for you. Now, the point about this is that it's really, really, really embarrassing for the whole British political class whether it's in its red, blue, or its yellow variants. And the reason is this. When I studied history at Cambridge, oh God, I'm not a college kid, am I? But actually, I have had a job in the real world before I got to the Parliament. The point is that when I studied history, one of the first things I learnt was about the duties of government. And the first duty of a government, as I learnt it, was very simply to protect its people, to look after the people it was supposed to be serving. Not ruling, that's the European tradition, but serving. Now, the British government knows perfectly well that Romanian and Bulgarian immigration is going to happen. There is even, I gather, a report which gives the government's private estimates. Of course, we're not allowed to see that. It's not that it doesn't exist, it's just that they won't share it with us, the people who elect them and pay their wages. And the reason they won't share it with us is this. What this little booklet does is to analyse all the reasons why, with the relative poverty of the Romanian and Bulgarian economies, it is highly likely, indeed a virtual certainty, that a large number of them will want to come to Britain. I would. I've looked at the figures, and I'm not blaming them for wanting to. All they want is a better life in the way we all want a better life. Now, traditionally, a proper government would have said, okay, what's likely to happen, and what do we need to do to protect our own citizens? But you see, this is where the EU comes in. Because if the British government try to do the things that I would do, and you would do, and Nigel would do, to protect British citizens from the economic impact of this immigration, the EU will not allow them to do it. If the British government try to do anything about Romanian or Bulgarian immigration and benefits, it will be the British government that is breaking the law. I think that is so unbelievably disgraceful that it virtually leaves me speechless. And you've already seen it begin to happen. Because if you remember, I can't remember whether it was Dave or Theresa May who said, we're going to tighten up on benefits. And the Commission has already issued a legal challenge to the existing rules because they are too tough on Romanians and Bulgarians and other immigrants. So you see, this organisation we joined, oh no, it doesn't matter, pooling sovereignty and all of that. 50, 60 years later, we know the truth. It goes to the heart of every single thing that happens in this country. In local government, in schools, there is no end to their power. Now, what I do is I help Nigel and the other MEPs to try to fight this in Brussels. And we fight it as effectively as we can, as effectively as the law allows. And it is difficult. It is demanding. It has lots of comic moments, like the Czech story that I told you. But the key point is this. As far as I am concerned, there is only one politician in Europe who understands the problem, understands the solution, and is prepared to tell it to the British people like it is. That man is Nigel Farage. Or as I often hear him called, Co-President Farage. And that's the EFD group. It's the group in the Parliament that UKIP are part of. I have positively been inspired by everything I have heard today. And as I have been given the privilege, and it is a privilege, of being the last speaker, I only want to finish by saying we have the right leader, we are evolving the right policies, we have the understanding, and because we are right, we are going to win.